What's up, Narco Gang? Welcome back to the channel. If y'all been following, right now we in the middle of the questioning of the prosecutor. So the defense the defense for Melly is questioning the prosecutor for the state of Florida right now. So I don't want to miss too much. They live right now, so let's get to it. Bam.
I noticed that.
And what did you do when you realized that there was an issue or concern with the report?
I notified you that there was an issue, that a defect in Mr. Thomas was labeled twice.
Okay. And so what, after that was done, did you look through the photos from the hospital?
I did, because I observed that Mr. Thomas had a defect on his right calf area, or I'm sorry, quadricep area, the upper part of his leg, that came from the door, and it entered into the seat. And when I was looking at the autopsy photos of Mr. Thomas, I would expect to find an exit wound from the medical examiner's office, and they did not have a picture to produce that, and it wasn't annotated in their report. So again, I notified you of this discrepancy as well.
And in terms of, were you able to figure out and determine which projectile caused that specific injury based on your reconstruction?
I was.
So we talked a little bit about the shots to Anthony Williams. I'm going to move on and talk to any of the injuries to Christopher Thomas. What did you look at in review in trying to establish a shooting reconstruction of the injuries to Mr. Thomas?
So the rods from the rear of the vehicle, Mr. Thomas assumed most of his injuries from the rear of the vehicle. I believe 5 projectiles entered him from the rear of the vehicle. 1 projectile entered him on his quadricep, upright quadricep.
Okay.
And I believe 2 projectiles entered him on his foot. And that's going from memory. Right, these autopsy photos, or?
So I'm going to come here to 6754, your photograph on that.
Okay, so these are the terminal points from the rear of the vehicle. Mr. Thomas is seated in this position, and of the 6 rounds that went into the seat, Mr. Thomas assumed 5 of them, and it is a very similar pattern in Mr. Thomas's back. It may not look like it lines up correctly,
Well,
however...
Let me interrupt you just there.
That shit matter if it don't line up correctly, nigga. What the fuck?
For a second before we go. On the top photograph that is labeled and marked as H, did that wound intersect in any way with the body of Christopher Thomas?
No.
Where was that projectile or defect later found?
That projectile perforated that headrest and continued to go forward in the vehicle and ended up striking Mr. Williams and I believe his back.
Okay. So I want to go forward on the back of the car. You take this picture, CSW_6760. What are you showing with this particular photograph?
So these are the trajectory rods that have entered into the vehicle. They are not exactly at the correct angle. The reason being, obviously, there's no glass. So they perforated the glass first, and then they made a secondary perforation into the seats. So that's why they're not exactly level.
So, Sergeant, are you saying that the end of these rods is where those shots were fired from?
No,
Why not?
because I'm missing the glass. So the glass would, obviously, if I can take a rod and put it through the glass and then into the...
Hey, I just want to clarify so everybody that's in my motherfucking I'm sorry for cussing. I don't want to cuss too much, but I just want to clarify for everybody that's on my page watching this. The lady that's talking is Melly's defense attorney. The guy that's in the side that's on the seat is the prosecution. He's the prosecutor for Florida. He's trying to prosecute Melly. The lady that's asking questions is on the defense for Melly. So people obviously don't understand that. I'm reading these comments. They keep on saying she want him to go to jail so bad. How she want him to go to jail? She trying to get this dude to clarify what the fuck he's trying to say inside of his indictment, inside of his, you know what I'm saying? All like she trying to find holes in it right now. That's why she asking all these goddamn questions. If y'all wasn't paying attention or understand how law worked, she trying to find holes into his story so that way she can have a better defense whenever they come with their defense.
terminal point, I would be able to obtain this picture to be demonstrably correct.
Okay, in terms of the angles and things that you measured on these, how did you get those angle measurements?
So what I ended up doing is recreating the back glass based on putting tape across the entire back of the window and making it line up with the glass that's existing in place on the top, sides, and bottom, and lined it up with that to make the arch of the glass window, and then ended up putting these rods into the proper position, and then created by right angles to create the proper angles for these strike marks.
In terms of the location in which the gun was fired that created these defects in the car, can you say it was a certain distance away with specificity?
I can give a range for these shots and for the shots on the side of the vehicle.
Okay. And in terms of the range, are you saying it could be a mile away at a 50-foot ladder?
No, I can give a specific range.
And how can you do that in this case?
So the specific range is based upon the two shooters that were presented to me, and I would obtain measurements.
Objection, Your Honor.
What's the objection?
Can we go separate? Sure.
We got an objection. We got an objection. What the hell going on? This ain't no sound. What happened to the goddamn sound? What the fuck going on here, man? I don't think this motherfucker guilty, bro. honestly. Really, I don't know. This shit looking crazy. This shit looking real crazy for my boy. This shit looking real crazy for my boy. I tell you. That nigga hair got long as shit. That nigga hair got long as shit, though. I tell you that. I bet you ready to cut that shit off, though.
You're entering.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Please be seated. Let the record once again reflect the presence of the defendant, his counsel, the assistant state attorney, and ladies and gentlemen, jury. Sergeant.
To the back of the vehicle because Christopher Thomas was what we would call crumbling. He was starting to fall, if you will. And on top of that, I know that he was already deceased because the back of his back, essentially, the rounds that are in his back, have no blood in them, which means that there's no circulation. So the rounds are coming in. Christopher Thomas is crumbling with each round. He's falling with each round, and that's the answer.
Okay. So in terms of, we'll get to the shooting inside the car in a little bit. I want to stick to the outside at this point. When you were looking at the side of the car on the angles of entry, and the side-to-side angles that I'm talking about, why is that important in your analysis? I'm going to go back to 4809 to describe those angles.
So these angles are important because it is part of my assignment, which is to determine if this is a drive-by shooting. And my determination was that this is not a drive-by shooting, and it's based upon this picture here, which is a very good picture to describe it. All of these rounds are done, and all but one is done at a stationary position. The shooter is at a stationary position when all but one of these rounds are going in. The one round that has some movement in it, which is round site L here, the shooter is actually moving in that to create the little bit of a keyhole that you see there.
Okay, a lot of information in that answer, so let's break it down a little bit. You mentioned a keyhole, so I'm going to zoom in on site L and explain what is a keyhole.
So a keyhole is a projectile comes out of the barrel and it is actually spinning in a line. It's also falling as it spins. However, once you add movement to the gun at the same time the projectile is coming out, you introduce that movement to the projectile. Once the projectile has altered movement, it will start to tumble. So it's no longer going in a straight line. It is actually going like head over feet, if you will, as it's entering into its target. And that head over feet gives you this right here, which is essentially the projectile coming in sideways.
And in terms of a drive-by shooting, if two vehicles were moving at 45 miles per hour, what would you expect to see?
So if it's a drive-by shooting, all of these rounds should look like this.
Why?
Because movement is being introduced to that projectile.
So to contrast site L with one of the other sites, like U, what does that tell you?
So that's a shot that the shooter is stationary. The vehicle is stationary.
And so, Sergeant, were you given a copy of what's been previously introduced into evidence, the statement of the co-defendant Courtney Henry?
No.
Okay. In terms of the information as to the suspected location on Miramar Parkway that was initially reported to law enforcement, was that told to you?
The hospital scene?
No, right off of I-75.
Objection relevant.
Excuse me, why don't you come sidewalk?
About the Miramar Parkway and I-75 location.
The Pembroke Road one?
No, not there yet. We'll get there. So in terms of, for your training and experience, if two vehicles are moving on a roadway at the same speed, identical speed, are you still going to get these keyholes on that?
Yes.
Okay. In terms of other drive-by shootings that you have investigated, have you seen straight 90-degree entry angles on those?
Absolutely not.
What instead is going to be more indicative of a drive-by shooting?
Keyholes.
Okay. In terms of changes in the entry angle, side to side, what would you look for in an actual drive-by shooting?
I would look for directionality and, again, the keyholes. So if you have two...
Alright, Norco Gang, this shit right here, I'm just gonna wait. My next video gonna be the verdict, bro. I can't keep just waiting for this. These keep cutting the sound off, cutting it back on, cutting it off. I'm over this shit. Look, I'm gonna stop this video right here. I'm gonna let y'all know when we get back to the motherfucking verdict. Let me know what y'all think of my poll I just put out. With that being said, we out this thing, Norco Gang. Peace.